Hello, everyone. Welcome into the Technical Area Insider. We've got a great show for you today. We welcome head coach Lewis Wilcox from the University of Colorado, Colorado Springs men's soccer program, Division II in the RMAC Conference in Colorado. We have a great conversation with Lewis about his rise to achieving the head coaching position and the journey that he took to get there. Hope you all enjoy this episode with Coach Wilcox. All right, and welcome to the Technical Area Insider. Today, our guest is a native of Cardiff, Wales. He is a head coach at the University of Colorado, Colorado Springs. He's held previous coaching roles at Midland University and Briar Cliff University in Sioux City, Iowa. He is entering his 7th season with the UCCS Mountain Lions men's program, 5th as the head coach. The Mountain Lions compete in the NCAA Division II RMAC in Colorado Springs. And 2024, of course, was a banner year for the program, coming in at 14-3-4. They achieved a second consecutive appearance in the NCAA tournament, the only 2 appearances for the program in its history. The program was ranked as high as top 5 in NCAA. He was a standout goalkeeper, earning all conference and all region accolades as a player at Midland University, and also spent time as a player in the Welsh League Division I, as well as USL League II with the Las Vegas Mobsters. I'm excited to welcome a rising star in the men's collegiate soccer world, head coach Lewis Wilcox. Hello, how are you, and welcome to the program.
I'm doing well. Thanks for having me. Look forward to it.
Good. Well, I appreciate you jumping on and joining us. I wanna start with your playing career. You started as a graduate assistant coming out of your playing career, and that's how you joined the coaching ranks. Talk to us a little bit about that transition. It's certainly not unique in that you are coming out off of your playing career. A lot of coaches start at the graduate assistant position. Tell us how that set you up for your next couple of moves.
Yeah, so obviously, I was a graduate assistant at Midland right after playing at Midland. So I was fortunate enough to get that position, and I was fortunate enough that there wasn't a full-time assistant at the time at Midland, so the graduate assistant was basically next in line to the head coach, which allowed me to take on a lot of different roles and responsibilities. When I was a graduate assistant, I was mainly working with the goalkeepers because I was a goalkeeper when I was a player, but was able to get a lot of hands-on experience even at a young age as a grad assistant. So my first year as a grad assistant was under Sean Fraser, and my second year was under Rafa Martinez. So got to learn a lot from both of those guys as well to set me on my way, so to speak. But yeah, definitely, I think the graduate assistant position obviously got my career started, and then after 2 seasons of that, I was able to go into a full-time role at Midland and be the full-time assistant coach. Just for 1 season before moving on to Briar Cliff to be the head coach at Briar Cliff. When I was 24 when I took the job at Briar Cliff, and I was there for 2 seasons. When I took over, it was a program that was sort of at the bottom end of the GPAC traditionally, and we were able to kind of turn it around and be competitive within the GPAC at the time, and kind of set them up for success for not just the seasons I was there, but in the future as well. So I was really proud of the work I did there, and then after the 2018 season, the position at UCCS became available as the assistant coach, and my wife being from Colorado, we had just had our first child, so we knew we wanted to get back to the area, and it was a no-brainer really to take the position at UCCS and be the assistant coach.
And let's talk a little bit about what it's like transitioning from a head coach to the assistant coach, and then, of course, realizing back up to the assistant coach role, or to the head coaching role. How did you manage that as an individual and your career aspirations?
Yeah, I don't think it was too much of a challenge for me because I was so young still. I felt like I was still just getting started on my coaching career, so to speak, and I think, obviously when I was the head coach at Briarcliff, there was a lot on my shoulders at a young age, and I had to just figure a lot of things out. I think my experience at Midland if you want to, sort of rewind a little bit, my experience at Midland being so hands-on from such a young age, I think set me up for the head coach position, and then going into the head coach position at Briarcliff and having to figure a lot of things out myself, on and off the field, just the logistics of being a head coach. A lot of things fall on your shoulders from start to finish. So having that experience, was great from a young age. And I just think once I took the assistant job, I knew there was just kind of another step in my career. I didn't really see it as a big deal from going from being a head coach to an assistant, because I'd only been a head coach for 2 years and was still so young. So I just saw it as that was my next chapter. That's where I was going to go and learn from next. I saw Briarcliff as a really good learning experience, obviously different at being the head coach, but I think that helped me then to go and be an assistant. And I definitely think there's some serious value in being a good assistant. Obviously humbles you. You have to show that sort of learning attitude of I'm here to obviously provide value and help the program, but I am definitely here to learn and grow and take other things and other styles on board and add that to my coaching philosophy as well. So I think it wasn't a huge transition for me, to be honest, because I still felt like I could relate to the players. I was still young enough to have that strong relationship with the players, either as a head coach or as an assistant coach. So, but yeah, I was very, very grateful for getting that experience at a young age at Briarcliff, and then I think it really helped prepare me for where I'm at now.
You mentioned this already, a young head coach. You've had an incredible quick rise by all standards. Do you have a mentor that you look up to, or somebody that you're in frequent contact with? And you don't have to disclose the individual, but do you have somebody that has encouraged you or helped you along the way? Are there many people that have helped you along the way?
I don't have a mentor, to be honest. I know, a lot of people, that's a lot of advice you get given as a young coach is find a mentor. I think I was fortunate enough to be surrounded by good coaches very early on in my career, and I'd like to think that I've taken influence from a lot of different people that I've worked with or had relationships with over my coaching career. So no mentor as such, but definitely being able to pull on different things from different people. To kind of rewind, when I was a youngster, growing pretty much my whole youth career, my dad was my coach. So growing up in Wales, my dad was my coach, and I was very fortunate to have that experience with him. Learned a lot from him, just in terms of relationships, learning and growing. My dad was very much into taking his coaching licenses and all that kind of stuff, to not for his gain, but definitely to help me and our team at the time. So I think I learned a lot from my dad in how to treat people as a coach, and I think from a young age, whether I knew I was going to coach or not, I think it was probably going to happen at some point. So he was a big influence for me. And then also growing up as well, my older brother was just one age group above me, and his coach was a family friend. He's no longer with us, Mark Richards. He was a big influence on me as well. And they were very different. They had very different styles, both my dad and Mark. So I think from a young age, I was surrounded by coaches, and I think learning from those people really set me up to take on a career in coaching. And fortunately enough, in the US, that's definitely a possibility with college soccer. Not so much in the UK, unless you're in the professional ranks. And then obviously once I came to the US, Sean was the head coach at the time. He was my head coach throughout my whole career at Midland, and a fantastic tactical coach. And then obviously I got to work with Rafa, who was a fantastic relationship builder. So I think having experience with both of those at such a young age as a coach was fantastic, and I was able to see that both of their positive assets, and I was able to sort of hopefully try and merge all of their strengths into one. And fast forward, there's too many people to name, but I definitely think over the last couple of seasons, in 23 and 24, no sorry 22 and 23, I was on the coaching staff with the Switchbacks in the USL Championship. I was actually doing some goalkeeper coaching with them. I was fortunate enough there was an opportunity, and they asked me to help out, and I was doing that alongside UCCS. So being in that office, learning from some of the best coaches I've ever been around, in James Chambers, Stephen Hogan, Brendan Burke, Alan McCann, those guys, I mean, I learned more than I could possibly imagine in such a short amount of time, not just on the field, but being in the office, the locker room, small conversations, big conversations. I mean, that was where I've learned a lot from over the last couple of years in more recent times. But I think just over the years picked up on so many different people and learned and grown from so many different influences for sure.
Do coaches do college coaches keep a close Rolodex if I'm using an old term, but I mean on your phone, are you in contact with coaches constantly trying to figure out hey, have you seen this before, managing a situation? Is that something you subscribe to?
Definitely. I think now as I think as a young coach you make more of an effort to do it. And everyone always says, oh, you've got to network, you've got to make sure you know all of these people. Yeah. And I don't know, I've never really loved just networking for the sake of it. I think I've always valued just more true relationships and friendships, and a lot of my friends now are through coaching. So I think being in contact with them, talking, texting, discussing our program, their program, like my friend, you probably remember Paul Cox, who was on the women's side at Briarcliff, and obviously I played with him at Midland. He's one of my close friends, and we still talk most days, to be honest. It's not always about productive things, but sometimes it's about coaching. But yeah, people like that. My friend Alex was coaching at Air Force. People like that. We sit and talk about different methods, the college game, all of that kind of stuff on a pretty regular basis, to be honest. So, yeah.
You mentioned the networking thing, and that is something that it's interesting to hear your feedback on that, right? Because it is certainly something that I hear a lot from coaches is, how do you come up with the next opportunity? Well, you got to network, right? Like that's part of the deal. Certainly your performance as a coach, that helps you stand out, right? And I think ultimately that's the reality of it, is that's how now you're judged, and coaches at the collegiate level are judged as their performance. But the networking piece is interesting to me because it makes it, there's sometimes a warm introduction makes it a little bit easier. So I got to imagine that's, while it's a piece of the puzzle, it's clearly not everything.
For sure. I've always just been a believer that it's, everyone says, oh, it's who you know, right, for the next opportunity. And I've always said, no, there's definitely an element of truth to that, but it's more so about what they think of you, right? Mm-hmm. It doesn't matter if I know David Beckham. If he thinks I'm an idiot, then he's not going to help me get a job. So I've always valued the actual true relationship more than going and trying to be a part of someone's network just so I can get a job or just so I can get an opportunity. So that's always been my take on it, to be honest. And I think I have a decent network. I think it's always growing, but I think that's really happened organically through relationships, move into different areas and regions, and I think a lot of it as well revolves around climbing the ladder. And I think everyone says you've got to do this so you can get to the next level, but that doesn't necessarily apply if you're really happy where you're at. Right. And I think, I'm certainly at a stage in my career where, that might not be the best advice. Right. So, someone might be listening to this and saying, well, that doesn't apply to me. And it certainly doesn't. But I think in my position right now, where I feel really valued, I love where I'm at. I don't necessarily feel as much pressure to go and network unless it's organic,
Yeah. And let's talk about where you're at a little bit and dive into that. So you've taken a program and at Colorado Springs, and you've had a tremendous amount of success early. Talk to us first, I guess, about the decision to come into the RMAC and what are some of the the qualities that you looked at that conference and said, this is where I want to be as a coach. Besides the geography, obviously, is a big part of it, but certainly talk about the competition.
Yeah, I think the geography and family was probably number one. That was probably the most natural pull for me, to be honest, was I think obviously with my wife being from here and her family being in the area, I think it was always probably on the cards that we were going to try and get out to the RMAC at some point, or coaching in Colorado at some point. I think it was a logical next step. I think it was going to be difficult for me to go from being a head coach at Briarcliff to being a head coach in the RMAC. It's such a strong conference, and it's so difficult to get a position at a top program within the conference. So I think I knew I had to start as being an assistant coach and work my way up and prove myself before taking on a head coach role. But I think the conference itself is so strong. I think there's only 2 Division I programs in the state of Colorado, with one of them being Air Force, which is a unique program as it's the military, and the other one is DU, who just went to a Final Four. So I think those programs are obviously difficult to get into, and I think for us, I think the reason why the RMAC is so high in level is because I think anyone that, whether you're local or out of state, if you want to play college soccer in the state of Colorado, you're probably going to an RMAC school. Obviously, it's not impossible to get into those other programs, but I think the chances are you're probably going to end up at an RMAC school, and I think that just filters down to make it an incredibly tough conference. It's really physical. I think everything you'd expect from a sort of rugged mountain conference and division, I think there's definitely part of that stereotype that is true. It's not, I think it's evolved over the last couple of years. When I came in, it was definitely very, very fast, very transitional, but just very physically demanding. And a lot of that is because of the environment, right? I wouldn't want to play a slow, methodical game at 6,000 feet elevation. That would make no sense. I would just be handicapping myself. So I think part of our environment often dictates how we set up and play, and I definitely think we are dictated to by our environment with the elevation. We want to play fast. We want to play forward first in transition. We want to be quick on restarts. We want to high press. We want to essentially smother teams in that regard. And I think that's probably been historically why the RMAC is known to be that sort of conference, but I think a lot of the time as well, people mistake that with so it's not technically good, but it definitely is. You've got some serious ballers at a lot of different programs within the RMAC, for sure.
Let me ask you for a little bit of a humble brag here, because you've had quite a bit of success early on. Is there anything particular you attribute that to, when you're thinking about where you guys are now and some of the accolades that I mentioned in the introduction, what do you look back and you say that these are the things that have helped me be successful?
I think from top to bottom, I think it's about getting the right people in, to be honest. I think, when I started in 2021, I got given the interim head coach title. I needed to hire an interim assistant coach, which is very difficult thing to do, right? Because you need someone basically to say, I believe in Lewis so much that I'm going to maybe quit a job or leave a job and go and take this job and relocate even to do that. So I was fortunate enough. Keith Buderis, he was the head coach at NJC at the time, Northeastern Junior College. He was actually looking for a new opportunity. He was ready to leave the junior college game. He had family. He's from Colorado. He kind of emailed me out of the blue right when I was searching, and for me it was an absolute no-brainer. He did a fantastic job when he was at the junior college level, so I knew him through that when he was trying to send us players, even when I was at Briarcliff and Midland, and I knew how good of a job he did and how good of a relationship builder he was. So that was a no-brainer for me, and he jumped on board straight away. So he was an interim assistant coach, and he has been just huge for the program as a person, as a coach. We brought on a couple of other assistants at the time, some volunteers from the area, people I really trusted and knew they were knowledgeable about the game, but were, again, great relationship builders and valued the holistic process of the college experience. So I think bringing those people on board right from the start was probably step one. And then we started to recruit people that wanted to be at UCCS for the right reasons. I think, one thing I've always said, it's hard to put your finger on exactly, the turnaround and what was the point that the things started changing. And I want to make it clear as well that even when I came in and years previous to that, I mean, there were some fantastic players at the program.
Sure.
That maybe didn't get to experience this level of success, but we had players in the program that were really high level players, but maybe the environment wasn't where it needed to be, or for whatever reason the motivation levels from those players or different players dictated the culture. And I think we had a lot of talented players and good players that maybe were here because it was Colorado first, right? So instead of being here for the soccer, it was here for the location, maybe some other external factors that were driving people to be at this program, and the soccer piece was maybe secondary, right? Which again, if you go to the right program where that's valued, then absolutely. And if you had a load of those guys, then it can definitely work. But for me, I always knew that if it's going to be my program and truly my program, I wanted people that were here for soccer first, and I wanted people that love the game and just want to develop, want to grow, want to win. And being in a nice city, being surrounded by beautiful landscape, and having access to skiing and snowboarding and mountain biking, all that kind of stuff, I wanted that to just be a bonus. So I think that was a quick thing we did was try and shift that culture of we want soccer players first, and everything else is just truly a bonus about where we live and where we go to college. So.
So share with me what it's like now in the locker room. You've spent the last few years really building this program. I got to imagine there's a lot of confidence, and that just breeds more confidence.
For sure. I think, and we've had relative success, right? We have, obviously we've had some good records. We've been in the national tournament. We haven't won a trophy. We haven't won the RMAC yet. And our guys are very, very hungry to do that, and very disappointed over the last couple of years not to do that. So I think that keeps everyone humble. And yes, we are confident. We believe we have a really deep squad, a really talented squad, but we are extremely hungry, and there is definitely no sort of complacency going on in our locker room, because I am motivated to win a trophy, and every single player in there is motivated to win a trophy. So yeah, it's been great, but we haven't lifted a trophy yet, and that doesn't define success totally, but for us, that's the next step in our journey, and that's what we've been trying to do over the last year or two as we've got the program to where it needs to be. I think really what separates our group and what we value in the recruiting process, but then just in terms of daily expectations, we speak a lot to the guys about the power of positive energy, and that's a big one for us, right? We really believe in you're either directly responsible for bringing the energy up of a group or sapping energy out of a group, and you can't really be neutral in an environment like ours. You can't sit there and go whichever way the wind blows. We want leaders. We want people that are we train at 8:30 in the morning. We want guys that show up ready to go with a positive attitude, so I think the power of positive energy is one. We don't want guys sitting on their phones in the corners just waiting until they have to rock up to training, and then they go out and train in the same mindset that they showed up at. We want guys that it's contagious, right? You walk in, you smile, you shake someone's hand, and you're ready to go. Then the next man is at least going to think about doing that, right? So someone's in the corner, foam rolling or stretching, activating before the session. So the next man is at least going to think about doing that as well, because it's a positive action. And the negative would be sitting there with low energy, not wanting to interact with your headphones in. I think that also can be contagious. So for us, that's a big thing, and the guys are probably sick of me talking about it, but that's one thing we speak about, and I think that also falls in line with how we play as a team and our style. We are high energy as a team, and I think anyone would tell you that's either played for us or against us. They know that they're going to play against a team that's relentless with our pressure on the ball, relentless in our press in general. And we want to play fast, and we want to play in your face. We want to be loud, aggressive, all of that kind of stuff. So I think that falls in line with how we want to play. And then secondly, I think the thing that we want in the recruiting process and what we want in the locker room is a bunch of guys that love the game. We spend a lot of time with these guys. We absolutely live and breathe the sport of soccer. We want guys that are the same way, because then I don't have to motivate them. I don't have to convince them to come out and give 100% on the training pitch. They're out there doing extra work early, extra work after the session. They're doing that without me even asking. And then when that is your standard, when that becomes daily, I think the new guys come into the program, they see that, and then it's okay, that's what I'm going to do. And that's what coach values, that's what our program values, that's what I'm going to do if I want to be successful here. And all of a sudden you've got a whole culture of it. Now, 1 to 32 on our roster, not every single person has to be the same, and we do allow room for people to be individuals, of course. That's what makes a team special. But those are two things that we want to be our driving factor of our culture is positive energy and lovers of the game, for sure.
Let's talk quickly about X's and O's. Are you married to systems and 4-4-2s and 4-3-3s, or do you take a look at your talent pool and who you're recruiting and say, we've got flexibility. We could set up in a 4-4-2 one day and a 3-5-2. How do you approach that?
Yeah, I think I think everyone would say ideally we recruit to the system that I want to play, and they come in and you're good to go. That would be the ideal scenario, right? But it never works out that way, especially in the college recruiting process. You don't really get enough time to evaluate these players fully. So you know exactly what you're getting. I certainly have never had that. So I think, some guys come in and are better than you expect or different than you expect. And some guys maybe don't do what you were expecting them to do, whether it's style or ability. So I think that would be the ideal, but probably not realistic. Typically I've been 3-5-2, 3-4-3. I think having three at the back at the college game really helps. You very rarely get beaten in behind. But then, I think now with the team we have, last year, for example, we had guys that were very energetic as wing backs, right? So they weren't right backs and left backs. They were in a 3-5-2. They were very energetic as wing backs. Top players, played a lot of minutes, but didn't really give us a whole lot of product going forward in terms of goals and assists. So then it's like, what's the point in playing with wing backs if they're going to be a big part of it? So, now our mentality is maybe, do we want to adapt? Do we want to play a system that suits those guys? But yeah, ultimately you're trying to find a system that gets your best players on the pitch and is going to give you the most chance of success. So I think it's great to have an idea and a vision as a coach of what you want to do from a formation standpoint, but definitely have to adapt. For me, that's coaching, right? I think coaching is being able to adapt and help your guys. You've invested in these guys. I can't change my roster halfway through. These are our guys, so let's make sure we are getting the most out of them. And then the last piece of that, I would say, is formation, regardless of our formation, we're probably going to play the same way in terms of style, right? So it's just slight tweaks of are we pressing into out? What's the role of the right back, left back? How are our midfielders rotating? Things like that. Maybe slight tweaks, but in terms of our principles and how we want to, and our style, it's going to stay the same regardless, and unless there's an anomaly in the season when we're doing a scout report and we absolutely need to change to give ourselves a chance of winning, then we might. But for the most part, we're going to stay true to ourselves.
I've been through this as a parent, Lewis, creating a highlight reel out there. How valuable is that to you as a coach? You have players now that you're evaluating all over the world that we know the travel budgets only go so far. I'm sure you'd love to be out every single day looking at players. How important is that reel, and what do you look for when when you're evaluating those? Because they're a couple minutes long, maybe at most, and how do you evaluate talent in that moment?
Yeah, it's just a start, right? And I think now that has become the starting point, right? If we receive an email and there's no video, then you've no chance, right? We don't have time to say, I wonder if he's a good player, let's follow up with him, So I think having that video is important. Having a quality couple of minutes is important. We're probably we'd very rarely sign someone just off of a couple of minutes, but I think, getting your best clips at the start, making sure that you give your best, because we're going to open up that video, we're going to watch a few seconds and make up our mind pretty quickly, rightly or wrongly. It's just a way of, we have to kind of make sure that we're efficient in our work. And I think getting your best clips at the start of the video is probably going to make us ask for more if they're standout clips, right? And I think if we can get that, we'll evaluate that quickly and we'll say, hey, we want to see more, whether that's more video, more 90-minute video, see you at the next event, all that kind of stuff. I think the video is just step one right now,
We've got a couple minutes left here. Talk to me. I am a parent. Why should my son come play for UCCS and join your program?
Yeah, I think what a fantastic place to be a soccer student athlete, right? I think obviously aside from Colorado Springs being a beautiful place to live, I think over the last couple of years we've had a relative level of success. And I think it's important that during the recruiting process, you find a program that has the right trajectory, right? Instead of just going to the most successful program because they're recruiting you, right? They might be recruiting you. They might have won 5 titles in the last 5 years, but you didn't win those titles. So I think it's very important to take the time to figure out what is the program on the rise, what is my chance of contributing and being a valuable asset to that program. I think those are the sort of important questions you have to ask. And I think if you look at our program at UCCS, we have demonstrated over the last 4 years that we are getting better and better every year. And I think we'll do that again this season. So I think in that recruitment process, you're going to come into a program that really values more than just being a high-level soccer player, more than just the X's and O's. We really believe in the holistic development, and we know we want guys obviously to come in and say, hey, coach, I want to be a pro. Can you help me get there? Great. If we can have a whole squad of that, I know I can hold you accountable to to real high standards. So I think, you know, we want to prepare them in our environment to get to that pro level, right? Reality is majority are not, okay? But then, so what else is our responsibility? It's to teach, you know, obviously the basic things of, you know, just discipline and time management, all that kind of stuff. But then obviously being a student of high character within our program, being held accountable for that is going to prepare you for your professional journey in whatever field it's going to be. So that's really important to us. The school itself is a growing school, growing institution, obviously part of the University of Colorado system. You know, where everything for me is, it comes down to the fact that men's soccer is really valued at UCCS, and you know, I have a lot to thank in terms of my administration for that. They really believe in what I'm doing and what we're doing as a team. Obviously I mentioned Keith and the rest of our staff, you know, do a fantastic job, and I really believe we have a top staff that you're going to learn from as a student athlete from a soccer standpoint, but also more importantly that about life, you know. And I think you're going to be in surrounded by people that love the game, and we always say we want soccer junkies, right? So I think you're going to be in a soccer environment if that's what you're looking for. You know, UCCS is a great place to be. Lots of great places to be, of course, but we really feel that the work that we do on a daily basis sets us apart as an elite program.
Well, listen, this has been fantastic. It's great to see your success so far, your program on the rise. You've got a great thing going out there in Colorado Springs. Best of luck. This is the most exciting time of year for me, getting ready, right, for the preseason. I'm sure you've got a lot on your plate here, so I appreciate you fitting us in. Hopefully we'll have you back at some point to check back in on the program. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Absolutely. Been a pleasure. Thank you again.
All right, we'll talk to you soon.
Take care.
Thanks, Lewis. Bye-bye.
Bye.